Hey guys, would you like to hear yourself on a future episode of Disney Coast to Coast? Well, if you're in the Southern California area on Sunday, May 20th, 2018, now is your chance. On Sunday, May 20th, I'll be hanging out at Walt's Barn in Griffith Park, California, recording the voices of visitors and chatting with them about their Walt Disney Barn experience. Also joining me will be the Pizza Planet truck for some great photo opportunities, so get your Instagram accounts ready for that. So that's Disney Coast to Coast, Walt's Barn, and Pizza Planet truck all in one place. That sounds like a win-win-win scenario to me. Of course, if you've purchased a Disney Coast to Coast t-shirt or Newsies cap in the past, be sure to wear them to the barn. There may just be a surprise there waiting for you. I hope to see y'all there.
Is your magic meter running low? Well, we've got a cure for you. Welcome to Disney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePaoli, and today on the show I have my good friend Aaron Wallace, who is the author of The Thinking Fan's Guide to Walt Disney World, Magic Kingdom, and Epcot, as well as Hocus Pocus and Focus. You can find everything he does over at AaronWallaceOnline.com. Hello and welcome back to the show, Aaron.
Hey Jeff, thanks for having me back. I'm excited.
Yes, this is your first time in the co-host seat, so this will be fun.
Yeah, I feel so honored. As a huge fan personally of DCTC, I'm very happy to be here.
You were very nice to say that. Thank you. Today's topic is actually going to be about celebrities and attractions, but before we get to that, I want to hop back a few episodes because you had texted me after episode 521 of Disney Coast to Coast, which our mutual friend Derek was on, and we were talking all about the Disney parks dedications. And we were talking about specifically, in this case, the Epcot dedication speech, and since you're far more intelligent than both myself and Derek, which I think he would agree with, sorry Derek if you don't agree with that, and as well as you wrote the book on Epcot, you wanted to touch upon the fact of that statement in the speech there, the phrase "wonders of enterprise." So just as a reminder, I'm going to read the Epcot opening speech to folks, and then I want to hear your interpretation. Is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Read it first, and then I'll dive into it.
Okay, to all who come to this place of joy, hope, and friendship, welcome. Epcot is inspired by Walt Disney's creative vision. Here, human achievements are celebrated through imagination, wonders of enterprise, and concepts of a future that promises new and exciting benefits for all. May Epcot Center entertain, inform, and inspire, and above all, may it instill a new sense of belief and pride in man's ability to shape a world that offers hope to people everywhere. So Derek and I analyzed this little speech, but we were a little thrown back by wonders of enterprise, and you said that you have a thought on this.
Yeah, well, let me first say, on the contrary, you're both so smart, and I loved that episode so much. It was a great idea, first of all, and I got so much insight from it, so I was just like tuned in the whole time. But yeah, you're right. It is this weird little phrase, wonders of enterprise, and it's just because I did write a book on the park that I had already sort of spent some time thinking about this and looking into it, and so that's why I said I had some thoughts on it. But I think that the phrase wonders of enterprise really traces back to two separate influences for Epcot. The first is Walt's vision for Epcot, the city, in which a part of his plan was to bring in corporations to test out technology that they were developing, a sort of new pioneering hopes for the way that urban planning could be done in the future. And so his city of Epcot would be a testing ground for these sort of wonders of enterprise. And it also traces back to the concept of the World's Fair, where it was the same idea that companies would come in and open up these temporary pavilions that would showcase technology they were working on that would fundamentally transform the American way of life. And so what you got was a little bit of both of that in the theme park that was ultimately built, wherein companies would come in as sponsors of Disney-built pavilions to showcase their technologies in new and exciting ways. And I also think that phrase, wonders of enterprise, carries a little bit of political weight too, because, Epcot was christened in 1982. This was the era of Ronald Reagan, and there was just a strong national consensus at the time in the belief of the corporation as kind of a bastion of hope for positive change for the future. And so I think one of the many obstacles facing Epcot as society evolves is that we have a different, culturally, we just have a slightly different, maybe more skeptical view of the corporation today. So it's almost like a loaded term, Wonders of Enterprise, but it's very nicely written. And you're right, it's a little bit weird. But anyway, that's my take on what that means and why it was there in 1982.
And ladies and gentlemen, that is why he wrote the book on the Thinking Fan's Guide to Walt Disney World Epcot. There you go. Did you analyze? I read the book a long time ago. So did you analyze that opening day speech in the book? I can't remember.
No, I think there's some reference to it. I didn't get into all of that, and that's why I love that episode so much. I don't think I've ever heard anyone sit down and go, park by park, go through the opening day dedications or the plaques, but there's so much in those dedications, as you guys demonstrated, to really think about and to inform the way that we understand not only what the parks are, but what they're supposed to be. And it creates kind of a standard to judge them by. So they're very helpful, and I thought it was so brilliant that you did that.
Oh, thank you. Do you have a favorite opening day speech? Just curious.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, I guess.
If we get rid of Disneyland,
I was about to say.
Yeah, that's a given. So if we put that one to the side.
Yeah, it has to be Hollywood Studios. That phrase, the Hollywood that never was and always will be, or whatever it was. I think of that all the time. And to me, that is the sort of thread of hope for that park. Mm-hmm. Whatever else might change conceptually in the way that we understand Hollywood Studios, I hope that part of it is still true. And I think that's the heart of what the Disney MGM Studios was and what Hollywood Studios is. So, and I love that, Michael Eisner said it because that's just sort of a nostalgia rush for me. So yeah, that's probably my favorite.
I would 100% agree. Anyway, we're not here to talk about that again today. We're here to talk about celebrities and attractions. So let's get to that right now.
It's time to dive into today's Disney dialogue.
Okay, so celebrities and attractions is something that's been around for the Walt Disney Company for a long time. From what I understand, I believe we have differing opinions on this, which is exactly why I wanted to have you on the show. And we're going to go through certain attractions that use celebrities as part of the attraction. But before we get to that, I kind of just want to have a conversation about our thoughts on this idea of doing it. And just to be clear, we're not talking about voiceover at all. Voiceover is kind of a completely different animal. We're talking about attractions where you physically see a celebrity, whether they're playing a character or playing themselves. And so I'm just kind of curious on your overall thoughts on this. I know you actually touched upon it quite a bit in your O Canada chapter in your book. And I don't know, do you want to go through just some of your thoughts on that and whether or not it works?
Yeah, sure. I will say, first, I have no idea actually what you think about this as a general matter. So I'm very excited.
Talked about this. I think we've definitely talked about Phylicia Rashad before.
Okay, you're right. We have talked about Phylicia Rashad. I mean, I'm always talking about Phylicia Rashad, to be honest.
But, she's your Rick Moranis?
A little bit. Well, yeah. I have many Rick Moranises, and I know that you do too.
Yes.
And he's going to be relevant to our discussion, I think. But no, I'm excited to find out exactly how you feel about this. I think I approach the issue of celebrities appearing in attractions on sort of a case-by-case basis. I'm not staunchly pro or anti.
I would agree with that. I definitely, going through these attractions, I was like, what? It really is case by case, even though in general I have a general idea. But sorry, continue.
Yeah, no, I guess we can look all the way back to, standing here in 2018, there is by now a pretty long and rich history of celebrities turning up in Disney parks and resorts attractions. And there was a little bit of that even back in Walt's time. I mean, you look at, for example, I think maybe the best example of this is the Haunted Mansion. Vincent Price turns up in the attraction, though I'm not sure if his involvement...
Paris, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, no, he's you see him on the bus, right?
Vincent Price in the Haunted Mansion?
No, you're right. That is Paris, and it's Thurl Ravenscroft. Yeah, in ours.
Oh, yes. First of all, for a second I thought you said bus, not bust, and I was like, wait a sec, what bus have I been missing in the Haunted Mansion? But yes, the bust of the singers.
Thurl Ravenscroft, who's maybe not a well-known name now, but he was in his time, but I'm not sure if he was involved pre or post Walt Disney's death. Also in the Enchanted Tiki Room, and we don't actually hear Louis Armstrong's voice or Sammy Davis Jr.'s voice, but the birds do sort of impersonate those celebrities. And Walt was bringing in celebrities for his TV specials to promote the parks all the time and that sort of thing. But there's certainly a lot more of it now. But yeah, as you said, I approach it on a case-by-case basis. In this O Canada chapter, where, of course, Martin Short is now hosting. For those who haven't seen it, Martin Short is your host and your guide through the Canadian Pavilion's film in Epcot. And I laid out just a few factors for sort of assessing whether or not a celebrity, helps an attraction, makes an attraction better, is well suited for an attraction. And I approach this in the way that the Supreme Court might approach a legal issue, rather than adopting sort of a bright line rule, setting forth a series of factors, analyzing those factors one by one, and then weighing them on balance in the end. So if most of the factors support the celebrity's involvement, then we say it's a good thing. And if they don't, then we say it's a bad thing. And so these are the factors that I set forth. You want me to just read through them?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So number 1, the relevance of the celebrity's persona or their body of work to the topic or theme of the attraction. So, for example, Bill Nye the Science Guy, very relevant to an attraction like Ellen's Energy Adventure. Ellen DeGeneres herself, maybe not so relevant, though she sort of calls attention to that, right? At the beginning of Ellen's Energy Adventure, which is now closed, she would say something like, "You're probably surprised to see me here at the Universe of Energy, but I'm an energy expert. You know that. I know that," sort of winkingly. The second factor, the amount of time the attraction spends contemplating its purported theme, as opposed to time just spent solely on the celebrity and their act. So is it more about the celebrity, or is it more about the story or the theme being told? Number 3, the extent to which the celebrity is renowned for their artistic merit, or their timeless or legendary as a master of the craft, as opposed to being a here and now sort of star power celebrity. So another way of putting this is, where do they fall on a scale of Kim Kardashian to Lucille Ball?
Nice.
Number 4, whether the celebrity contributes to or detracts from the attraction's longevity. In other words, is the attraction more likely to be around because the celebrity's there? Are they able to save it? Number 5, in cases where the celebrity's performance has displaced a non-celebrity or a previous actor, does the new star contribute to the attraction's focus on its theme? Number 6, in the course of conversation, do guests tend to focus on the substance of the attraction, or do they just talk about the celebrity? In other words, has the celebrity become a distraction from the attraction? And then finally, in the case of Epcot specifically, the extent to which the celebrity's performance contributes to Epcot's goals of inspiration and edutainment.
Epcot has goals?
Well, did, and hopefully still does.
Yes. No, I kid, of course. Yeah, so those are obviously all really good points to look at when making these decisions. And as we've both said, it is a very much case-by-case basis. So let's go through some attractions and just have a little conversation about each of them and what we think. I'm going to start with an attraction that began over at Disney California Adventures, now at Epcot as well, and that's Soarin' Around the World. It used to be Soarin' Over California or Soarin'. And this always had Patrick Warburton as your flight attendant on the attraction. And in his case, in any character actor's case, I actually find this to be a bit of a bigger problem, because I find that a lot of times you'd think, oh, well, they're less of a known name, so maybe they can fill that character in and make it more believable more easily. Mm-hmm. But to me, it just becomes that conversation of, oh, I know this guy. What have I seen him in? I know this guy. And so, of course, we're talking. It's funny because the character's name is Patrick as well, so he's kind of playing himself, but not really, because he's not a flight attendant. And people know him from the TV show Rules of Engagement. He's also the voice of Buzz Lightyear whenever Tim Allen doesn't do it. He's done voices in Emperor's New Groove. So people know of him, but I don't know. Do you find it distracting to have Patrick Warburton in Soarin'?
I've never thought about it in those terms before. I think you're right. That conversation definitely happens. People say, oh, where do I know that guy from? Right now, he's in the new A Series of Unfortunate Events.
Is he?
Series on Netflix. Yeah, he plays Lemony Snicket, and he's so good in it. But, I think maybe there's a little bit of detriment in that conversation being a distraction while you're standing there in the queue. But over time, my feeling is that he's certainly won over audiences. I mean, I think people really look forward to seeing him there. He's genuinely funny, so he's not there just sort of just for recognizability. I think they cast him because he's funny and he strikes exactly the right tone for this pre-show. So I don't know. I'm a big fan of him there, but you're not so much.
No, I'm a huge fan of his. I will say from the get-go, in general, I am not a fan of using celebrities in attractions. I find it to take away from character believability. And if you listen to the show regularly, like character integrity is a huge thing for me. So in general, like if I were to blanket statement it, I would say I am not a fan of using celebrities in attractions. There are definitely situations where I would contradict myself. In this case, I love Patrick. I am one of the people who, when they were changing from Soarin' over California to Soarin' around the world, there was that big question mark. And actually people in the fan community kind of had a little bit of a fit, like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen to Patrick? Like, is he going to be in the show still? And we were all really happy and relieved, I think, when, Soarin' Around the World opens and, oh, Patrick's still part of it. Great. Okay. So how can I don't feel right saying, no, I'm not a fan, when I was definitely one of those people upset to see him possibly not be part of the attraction.
Yeah, and it's funny because this is a phenomenon that happens with a lot of things in the Disney universe, where the way that we perceive something on day one and the way we perceive it 10 years later can change, because whether you like it or not at first, you may ultimately end up bonding with this thing by virtue of writing it 500, 600 times. And you get to learn, all the various intonations in their delivery. And it just becomes part of the experience for you. And if you love the experience, you love the celebrity who's participating in it.
Yeah, so I guess with Patrick, I'd say, I kind of love him in it, even though there are things about it that I find troubling overall. Pretty big fan of him. I mean, that line, "these little beauties," is like the most perfect delivery on the face of the earth. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, and I feel very strongly, and this is something I've talked about in all my books, that the Disney and especially the Disney parks have a personality. They have a sense of humor that's sort of the park's own. And it is this just slightly silly, but slightly dry, deadpan, tongue-in-cheek type humor. And so I think they often cast celebrities. Ellen is a great example. Patrick Warburton's another, who their own comic styling is sort of on brand for Disney. And that creates a consistency. I know you're a big fan of consistency, where you whether you're in Jungle Cruise or you're at Soarin' or you're at Ellen's Energy Adventure, or even the pre-show of Dinosaur, where they're showing guests being flung around for dear life, and they say, it might get a little bumpy out there, and it creates a consistency for guests to know that wherever you're going, the same sort of sense of humor is coming up again and again, and I think that helps you fall in love with the Disney parks over the course of a week.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next attraction, and we're going to stay at Disney California Adventure for a second, and I'm sure when I mention this, there are going to be a lot of people who are going to be like, wait, that's a thing? The bakery tour at Disney California Adventure, which is very random, and frankly, it's now an abridged version of what it used to be, which is fine, because it should be. But this attraction, your tour guides are Rosie O'Donnell and Colin Mochrie, which is interesting, but I'll start with you. What do you think about this little celebrity cameo?
Well, like you, I love Rosie O'Donnell. Frankly, I would be fine with an attraction where we sit in a chair and an animatronic Rosie O'Donnell throws koosh balls at us. Like, I would be there for that.
Me too. Side note, literally the backpack I wear every single day has a koosh ball from the Rosie O'Donnell show hanging on it.
That is amazing. Do people ever like recognize that, or?
No, and it's honestly, I forget that I have it on there, and I was, I was about to get super name droppy. I'm going to leave that alone. But in any case, yes, I have the koosh ball hanging on my backpack.
Because if I saw a koosh ball on someone's backpack, I see koosh ball, the first thing I think is Rosie O'Donnell. I like,
and it's one of the official Rosie O'Donnell show koosh balls. Like, I got it at the show. And I'm just like, well, I got to keep this forever. And it just kind of hangs on my bag. So, yes, I'm a huge Rosie fan. And but in any case, what do you think about her in the attraction, though?
Yeah, this is not an e-ticket. It may not even be an A-ticket. This is sort of a diversion that you walk through for a moment, in my mind at least.
To get free bread.
Yeah, absolutely. And if there is a star in this attraction, it's the free bread. But so, I don't know. It's difficult to even get too worked up about an attraction that is such a minor diversion one way or the other. I think Rosie's funny enough in it. I enjoy seeing her. Maybe she's a little bit of a distraction from if the goal is to learn about bread, maybe she distracts from that. But again, this is not that important an attraction to my mind. And there's one other celebrity from Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Whose Line Is It Anyway? Colin Mochrie.
Yes. So I don't have particularly strong feelings, but I don't mind either of them being there. How do you feel?
The reason I even added this one on the list, because as you mentioned, it's pretty inconsequential. The reason I put it on the list is because I feel like this use of a celebrity in an attraction is a perfect example of timeliness and how things can become outdated. Because when the park opened, 2001, height of the Rosie O'Donnell show and height of the Drew Carey, Whose Line Is It Anyway? So these two celebrities were very, in the public eye at that point. Now, what are we, 17 years later, there's a lot of people that go through there who I'm sure, like, who are these people? Oh, she sounds a little like Turk. But, like, you know, but aside from that, that's the reason I wanted to include this in the list, because I just think it's just so outdated. But like you said, it's not a big enough attraction to, like, remake the video, right? And
Right.
as I mentioned, it is an abridged version of what it used to be. So yeah, it doesn't bother me. I'm fine with it, but the references are severely outdated in my opinion.
Yeah, well, and you raise a good point. I mean, I do think it's important that Disney be very careful when casting celebrities to choose people, and this is one of the factors that I read a moment ago, to choose people who have achieved a sort of timelessness or longevity in their career, so that even if they aren't currently at the height of their fame, they are fairly recognizable, so that people aren't saying, like, wait a minute, I can tell I'm supposed to know who this person is, but I don't. Yeah. I would think that Rosie O'Donnell is still, I mean, even if she isn't actively doing a lot anymore, I would still think that she's a fairly well-known personality, but maybe not for the youngest guests. But it is an important thing to keep in mind. But then the flip side of that is, well, if they're playing someone other than themselves, and they're just very good actors, and they do a great job in their performance, does it matter that they aren't relevant anymore?
If they're playing a character, I would say absolutely it's much less relevant.
Sure.
But in this case, they're both playing themselves.
Right.
But yeah, no, that's a good point as well. Let's head over to Journey into Imagination with Figment and Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, which were kind of one and the same, because Eric Idle plays a character called Dr. Nigel Channing. Thank you. And the thing I like about this is that he plays this character in both attractions, which were part of the same. Yes. What's the word I'm looking for? The
pavilion.
Venue? Pavilion. Thank you.
Yes.
Part of the same pavilion at Epcot. Of course, Honey, I Shrunk the Audience was also at Paris and Disneyland. But Eric Idle, to me, is very distracting in this role. Just because, I mean, he's you see him, you think Monty Python. Either that or you don't know who he is. But to me, it's just Monty Python. And this is like the perfect case of, it's a little distracting. Rick Moranis, on the other hand, in Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, is playing the character he played in the film. So it 1,000% makes sense for him to be in there.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I pretty much agree with you on this. I'm of two minds in that, as you said, I love the idea of there being an Imagination Institute. You and I are both fans of both consistency and storytelling, so the idea that this pavilion is a real-life institute, it makes sense that the same head of the institute would turn up in multiple attractions. So the idea of the Dr. Nigel Channing character is very appealing to me, but his execution is just less successful, and part of that might be Eric Idle's fault. I like him in general. I love Monty Python. I think he's a funny guy, and he's funny enough in the attraction, but maybe it's the material he's given to work with. He comes across as a little annoying, as does everything in that attraction, quite frankly. And there's also, he fails by way of comparison. This is one of the factors I read earlier too. You know, when a celebrity comes in, you have to look at who did he displace, and does he strengthen or weaken the attraction as a result? And he replaced the Dreamfinder, who was a beloved, iconic character, an original creation of Walt Disney Imagineering, and I think he just falls short in every respect in that comparison. And so, yeah, it's a little bit of a distraction. I agree. You either don't know who he is, which is probably the case for most people, or you know him for the only thing that he's really known for, which is Monty Python, and he's essentially doing his Monty Python shtick in the attraction. So yeah, I think this is a less successful example. But that having been said, I don't hate it because he is relatively funny in the end result.
Yeah, I do think that as we mentioned, it's so great that this character reoccurs in two attractions, or at one point in two attractions at Epcot. I just think, how much more believable would that character be if it weren't anybody known? If it were just an actor that nobody had any idea who it was, it would be like, that's a real, Dr. Nigel is a real person who works at the Imagination Institute. And that's really where my argument comes in with using celebrities. I feel like the character would just be so much more believable if it were a complete unknown.
Yeah, in that case, I think that's probably true. I think we agree on that.
Yeah, I'm just curious, have you ever seen somebody on a TV show or movie and been like, I know them from a Disney attraction, but they were not a celebrity at all or working in TV and film, but you recognize them from like a Disney project or any theme park, I guess, and then catch them later in something more mainstream?
Oh my gosh, I don't think I have, but I'm terrible with faces. Like I'll see somebody in two movies back to back and not even make the connection. So I don't know. Has that happened for you?
It hasn't, but I wouldn't say I'm terrible with faces. In fact, this is a bit of a little tangent here, but if you follow me on social media, people will know that I'm obsessed with the film Call Me By Your Name, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. Have you seen that?
Yes, it was fantastic. Loved it. One of my top movies of last year.
Okay, great. We're on the same page. One of my top movies of probably the last 5 or 10 years. But in any case, the actor who plays the dad in that film, who is like, I can't think of his name.
Michael Stuhlbarg.
Is that his name?
That's the actor's name. Yeah, he's fantastic.
Okay, great. Phenomenal actor, and I should know him from a lot of stuff. But I see him in this movie, and he looks quite a bit different. But for some reason, all I think to myself is, oh my goodness, that man was in the pilot of Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. So not only does my head go to a show that like most people haven't heard of, and then it's like a character that was in one episode, and that's what I think of. So one of these days, I'm really hoping that I see somebody from a Disney, attraction in a TV show or movie, and I can be like, oh my goodness, I know that person from Star Tours, like something like that.
Yes.
I would love that to happen.
Yeah, and the Disney parks could get a reputation as being like the place where stars are born.
Exactly. That'd be phenomenal. Anyway, let's move over to Mission Space, which at one point starred Gary Sinise and now Gina Torres. Gary's interesting because he's played these kinds of roles before in movies, and Gina people know from shows like 24, Serenity, and Westworld. But do you have any thoughts on these two?
I'm not a fan of Gary Sinise in general,
Okay.
and I know this probably just comes down to personal preference. I don't think he's a particularly great actor. I do know that a lot of his performances have been well reviewed. I think he won an Oscar, was nominated for an Oscar, something like that.
I don't know. If he did, my guess would be Forrest Gump, but I don't know.
And that's what he's best known for. And he has a history with the Disney parks. I mean, he's come to narrate the Candlelight Processional a number of times at Walt Disney World. But I think he's also become a little bit of a joke in pop culture, even outside of Disney in recent years, because he is known for being sort of a one-note actor, for giving kind of wooden performances. And there are roles that call for that, certainly. But to my mind, that does not make him a great, dynamic, timeless actor. And my feeling was always that Mission Space, not a fantastic attraction to begin with, was even less fantastic by virtue of his performance, which was very wooden, very stuffy. His facial expression did not change once in the course of his appearances in Mission Space. And so, everything about that attraction just fell short, and his role was part of that. I think that Gina Torres is an improvement. She's very likable. I already liked her from a show called Firefly. Have you seen that?
Oh, is she on that? Okay.
She's on that. And, here's the thing. So she's not a super well-known actress, but I think Firefly has kind of a cult following, and it's in the same genre. It's like this well, it's a sci-fi Western, but it's heavily sci-fi. It's about space travel and that sort of thing. So to my mind, she brings a little bit of credibility from a fan base that is relevant to Mission Space. Mm-hmm. And I just think her performance is much better. She's very likable, and my ability to enjoy Mission Space has been enhanced as a result of that change in casting. What do you think?
Well, number one, I will say I've never enjoyed Mission Space. I've done it. I did it once, and I did the wuss version, and I was like, I'm way too claustrophobic for this. This is never going to happen again. So I've only seen Gary Sinise do it. But I will say the point that you made is Gina kind of fits within the theme of Mission Space. I would say the same for Gary, right? Wasn't he in Apollo 13?
You're right. Yes, that's true.
So I think that they would both fit in that genre. This is a case of I kind of just don't care. I think it would be better with a non-celebrity because that's my theory in general. I don't think that either of them enhance the attraction. And like I said, I'm not being fair because I don't like the attraction, and I've never seen Gina do it. I haven't really even watched video clips on YouTube. This attraction, it kind of bothered me when they changed him, just because I was like, oh, they're keeping this around? Like, they're investing money into this attraction to keep it around? All right. Like, let's be honest. I'd rather be a Guardians of the Galaxy attraction there than what's sitting there now. Because it's probably the only attraction in a Disney park that I'm like, I will never do again. I just don't like it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I went on the new Gina Torres version, both green and orange, once for the sake of seeing the change. And then I went on the green a second time just to introduce my family to it because I thought they might enjoy it. But I'm fine never going back again. It's not a pleasant experience. In fact, it is a decidedly unpleasant experience. And it's such a shame because they spent so much money on that attraction, and it has not been well received.
To me, that was an example of, oh, this is new. This is something that hasn't been done before. This will wow people. And the consideration of, will this be fun, was kind of like a secondary thought for them. They were just more about, doing something different, which is great. I'm always an advocate of doing something different and new. But, I mean, just the subject matter doesn't interest me, and the execution of the attraction doesn't interest me, and neither of those stars interest me. As far as whether or not they're successful, I would prefer it not be a celebrity, just because that's generally where I stand. So.
Sure.
Now let's move on to O Canada, which you touched upon a little bit, but this is hosted by Martin Short. This is the Canada Pavilion at Epcot. And what do you think about him?
Listen, I'm a huge fan of Martin Short, and I actually go through in the book sort of all these factors and talk about him specifically. And there's this whole we won't get into it all now because it will take a lot of time. But there's this long history of the O Canada film in Epcot and sort of the Canadian culture's response to it and how that changed over time as Canada became a more modern place. There was actually this whole media campaign within Canada to change the film, the pre-Martin Short film, because it was filled with all these negative stereotypes about Canadians. And so anyway, long story short, Martin Short's version of the O Canada film, which is currently playing, was Disney's answer to criticisms within the Canadian culture. And by and large, within Canada, it was well received. And so I think that this is a great example of a celebrity being able to step in and improve an attraction. It seems to have boosted attendance in the attraction as well. And look, I just think that Martin Short's a very funny guy. He's timeless. Generations, whole decades of people know who he is, have had an opportunity to sort of encounter his sense of humor, which is very self-deprecating. And my understanding is that that was important to like the Canadian Tourism Commission. They had specifically asked Imagineering to incorporate self-deprecation within the attraction because they thought that was a hallmark of the Canadian sense of humor and the Canadian personality. And so I think if you're going to look for someone who embodies that, Martin Short is himself a Canadian. And so he's able to speak very credibly and authentically from the point of view of someone who is Canadian, but also familiar to American audiences, to talk about Canada, what Canada means to him, and to do it in a way that is self-deprecating and therefore exemplary of what Canada feels is its own personality. And so I'm a big fan of Martin Short, and I think that he's made this pavilion as a whole so much better. What do you think?
That's so funny that Canada requested, hey, we want some self-deprecating humor there. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I want to see an England film with Ricky Gervais. That's what I want to see.
You talk about a sense of humor that is not so on brand for Disney.
No, not so much. But yeah, I'm fine with this because Martin Short's playing himself. Interesting point you brought up is he is kind of timeless in the sense that, like, I think he's one of those people that everybody loves him from something specific. Like, when I think him, I think probably first thing comes to my head is Three Amigos and then maybe Father of the Bride. But there's so much other stuff that I feel like somebody likes. Maybe if you don't even like him, you like something he's in,
Yeah.
So
when he's on talk shows all the time. I think they're one of the major late night shows. I think he has the record for being the most frequent guest.
Oh,
so,
really?
I mean, even if you haven't seen his movies or anything, he's just one of those personalities. He's so ubiquitous that most people have some sense of who he is and what he's about.
Yeah, he has a very specific style of comedy, and it's kind of funny because, like, it seems as though his act has never changed. Just from, like, him entering the room, he always enters the room the same way. Whenever he's, like, a guest in a talk show, he does this thing where he stops and kind of does, like, a Superman-like pose and, like, in an obnoxious way takes in the praise. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I absolutely do. Yeah, and I have the title of his memoir here. I love this. So he wrote just, a book about his sort of an autobiography, and he called it, "I Must Say, My Life as a Humble Comedy Legend."
That's fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah. That's totally on brand for Martin Short. So
Exactly.
Cool. Let's move on to Test Track, and we're going to go to the original version of Test Track, because I don't think this newer version has any celebrities. Correct me if I'm wrong. But does it? I don't think so.
No.
Okay. So the original version of Test Track in the video has John Michael Higgins, whose name you may not know, but you probably would recognize from the Pitch Perfect film and a lot of Christopher Guest movies. And yeah, so for me, this goes back to the same thing as Patrick Warburton, but even more so, I think, where he's a character actor where people are like, where do I know this guy from? And because of that, I find it very distracting.
Okay, that's fair. For me, I did not know him from anything other than Test Track until much later in life, but it wasn't one of those situations where I recognized him from Test Track, because by then he looked so different. He'd aged so much by the time I was really seeing him in things. Like, I love him in this show called Great News. I don't know if you've seen it. It's currently on NBC.
No, I don't know it.
Hilarious if you like 30 Rock, sort of that sense of humor. But anyway, so it was actually a recent realization for me that, that's the guy who was in Test Track. So I wonder how many people did recognize him. At least to my mind, he was not as prominent or recognizable as someone like Patrick Warburton. But it sounds like you, like day one, when you first went into Test Track, you did recognize him?
Day one was a long time ago. I feel like and this could be totally made up in my mind, but I feel like I may have recognized him, but done exactly that. Been like, where do I know this guy from? He definitely looks familiar to me, I feel like. So, a little distracting in my opinion. Yeah. Anyway, let's go to the Rock and Roller Coaster, which is unique because this is a case where we've got Aerosmith playing themselves, and then an actress by the name of Illeana Douglas, who is playing a character. And Illeana has been seen on shows like Entourage, and the movie I always think of when I see her is Stir of Echoes, and a lot of stuff. Like, her IMDb is crazy. But how do you feel about the use of these two groups in that attraction?
Okay, separate thoughts on the two of them. I'll start, I guess, with Aerosmith. I am a huge fan of Aerosmith also, principally because of this attraction. When I was younger, I was so scared to ride it, and I thought, if I know the music well, I won't be so scared. This is, I was probably a teenager and just very timid about the idea of roller coasters still. And so I gave myself a crash course in Aerosmith music so that the ride wouldn't be so scary for me. And through that process, I became a huge Aerosmith fan. I devoured all their albums. I love Steven Tyler's voice. I love that it's hard rock, but fundamentally it's blues and jazz. It's wonderful music to me. But here's what I like about Aerosmith in this attraction is that here again, like Martin Short, they are a universally known legendary group. They aren't really at the top of the charts anymore. Neither is their genre as a whole. But I still think they've scored so many hits across so many decades that pretty much everyone has some sense of who Aerosmith are, and I think their catchphrase or their slogan is that they are America's rock band. So, like, if the Rolling Stones is the band of the United Kingdom or the Beatles, then Aerosmith is that for America. And so I love that. I love that sort of the highest caliber, most prominent classic rock band from America is the one that gets its own attraction in Hollywood studios. And I think Steven Tyler is just a fun personality. He himself is a big Disney parks fan. He's there all the time. So I think he gets the sense of humor, and he kind of displays that in his performance in this attraction. And the whole thing's credible as is this journey through Hollywood, fighting traffic to get to a concert. And you would do that to get to a big Aerosmith concert. In fact, I once left Hollywood studios and fought traffic to Tampa to see Aerosmith in concert right after having ridden Rock and Roller Coaster. So the whole thing felt very credible to me. So I guess before we get into Illeana Douglas, how do you feel about Aerosmith?
There's two things about what you just said. So basically what you're saying is putting Aerosmith in a roller coaster attraction at a Disney park, you simply love that idea.
Nicely played. Yes, sir.
Sorry, that was really bad.
I loved it so much.
And I honestly, honest to God, hope you get to interview them someday just so that you can tell them the story of how you were introduced to their music and that you were doing research to prepare yourself to ride a roller coaster. That is
my
perhaps
gosh.
the greatest story ever of somebody becoming a fan of somebody's music.
Yeah, because I feel like most of their fan base came from like the 60s and 70s through like LSD or something, and I came to them through Disney's Hollywood Studios. But
That's unbelievable.
we all find our own paths.
Yeah, now you will probably be able to answer this question. By any chance, is Aerosmith signed with Hollywood Records, which is the record company that Disney owns?
No. I mean, they may have done a one-off project with them here and there, but no. You know, that record label is very amusing to me, Hollywood Records, because I think they try to play in the big boys league as like a credible mainstream record label. But with the exception of what Queen, I guess, is signed with them, for the most part, the acts who are signed with Hollywood Records are Disney Channel stars.
Okay.
And so they might as well call it, Disney Records.
Well, why don't they? I mean, I guess so that they sound more big league, I guess.
Right, and I think Disney had high hopes once upon a time, back when Disney soundtrack songs would actually become hits on pop radio. I think they had hopes that they could become a major player in the pop and rock music scene. It never really happened. So if they were choosing solely from the pool of Hollywood Records artists to build an attraction around, I don't think that we'd be very fond of whatever ended up there.
Yeah, I'm cool with Aerosmith being part of this attraction because they're playing themselves, so it's not distracting in that sense. The only thing I don't like about it is it's not Disney related. I'm one of those people that really just wish that the Disney parks was full of Disney stuff, and because of that, I don't love it. Like, I'm a huge advocate of get rid of the Aerosmith overlay, make it Powerline, and I'm like, golden. Like, that's the dream. But as far as them being in the attraction, it doesn't bother me at all. They're cool.
See, I mean, I love Powerline. I love a Goofy movie. But to me, that takes something that seems very credible as a part of Hollywood. Like Aerosmith, this major player in the real Hollywood, having a concert at, an LA venue. And it makes it almost a little sillier and a little more myopic in that where it's claustrophobic in the sense that everything within the park has to come from the Disney brand, and that's not what the real Hollywood is like. And so it becomes a Disney-fied version of Hollywood if we can't have some of the real Hollywood in there. So I would be a little disappointed in that.
It is called Disney's Hollywood Studios.
That's true, but I don't know, what's the more important modifier there, Disney or Hollywood? I mean, the theme doesn't come from the word Disney, it comes from the word Hollywood.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, and obviously it's something that Disney MGM Studios, I don't know if struggled's the right word, but it was part of Disney MGM Studios since the beginning. And yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely of the mindset of I wish that Disney Parks was full of Disney product, but that's a whole other.
What if it were the Hannah Montana roller coaster?
That would drive me crazy, I think it would be more appropriate, but I would not be a fan of that. So I don't know. It's interesting. But Aerosmith, they're cool. But how about Illeana Douglas?
Okay, so
Did you recognize her? No.
No.
Okay.
And in fact, I don't think I've ever seen her in anything other than Rock and Roller Coaster, but she's so good. She's so likable in this. And some people don't like her performance. I've heard people say that it's over the top. I don't know how you feel about her or that it's sort of a cliched performance, but I find her very amusing and likable. I think from the very first time I rode this attraction, she was one of my favorite parts. I recently found out that she hosts a video podcast. It's on YouTube and iTunes. And actually, my friend Chris Burgosh, who co-wrote The Florida Project, which is a Disney-relevant film that maybe a lot of people have seen recently, he recently went on her show and he engaged her in a conversation about her performance in Rock and Roller Coaster. And she was excited to have been recognized from that. So I guess people don't often recognize her from it. But yeah, that's really the only thing I know her from. How about you?
I'm kind of indifferent. It goes back to the John Michael Higgins, Patrick Warburton thing. She's a character actor that it's like, oh, what do I know her from? And she's really like, oh, what do I know her from? Because as I mentioned, like I only kind of know her from one thing, but no, she's done a billion things. And so it comes down to believability of character. So the fact that I recognize her from something else and it's a weird thing because like I don't have, obviously actors do a bunch of different movies and I accept them as different characters. But for some reason in this, what's supposed to be, one of the most immersive experiences, a theme park, by recognizing somebody from something else, for me, it just immediately becomes, oh, that's an actor, as opposed to, oh, that's that character who is this real living thing in this fully immersive world. So it's probably a bit of a weird quirk in my personality. But I don't know. I'd be curious to hear if other people feel the same way or not. But yeah, that's pretty much where I land on her. Then there is the Tower of Terror with Rod Serling, which I think is just the perfect use of a celebrity in an attraction.
Yeah. And it's a posthumous use, which is that our only example of that?
I believe so.
Yeah, so that's an interesting concept in itself. But here again, Twilight Zone, so iconic, so well known. Here again, even if you haven't seen episodes, most people know generally what the Twilight Zone is. And it is a very specific tone and genre that the attraction is able to invoke because he's in it. And yeah, I mean, there's this sense of foreboding that comes from that delivery. Who is the voice actor again? I know that you had him on your show.
Yeah, Mark Silverman is the voice of Rod Serling.
Of Rod Serling, yeah, and he does a voice match, and it's so perfect that you totally believe that it's Rod Serling himself speaking to you. And yeah, I love it. I would be so sad if it ever went away. I know you've talked about that possibility before.
Oh, I think it's more than a possibility. I think it's happening.
My hope is that if that does happen, that I don't think the attraction has to change to remove the Twilight Zone IP. No, it doesn't have to change substantially is what I'm saying. And so in other words, Disney legally would be well within its rights to create a very similar film that is an homage to the genre of Twilight Zone or even a parody of Twilight Zone without using Rod Serling. They could even use a character performer who's sort of Rod Serling-ish. All of this could be done. And so I hope that they do something along those lines to keep the genre in place because the genre is the heart of that attraction.
I think that would be a bad idea to do a parody or something too similar because people then it would just be the attitude of then why change it. So I think it would have to be different enough. I don't think it should be Guardians, Mission Breakout or anything.
Sure.
I obviously they would keep the Hollywood Tower Hotel because it's in that park. They have to keep the Hollywood portion or at least create some other completely different story that's related to Hollywood. But I do think I just think that parks in general are headed in the direction of we don't want it unless we own it. I think the Rock and Roller Coaster in Tower of Terror will be changing. I know Rob Plays on YouTube has a whole analysis of this, and I think he's dead on right. And yeah, and he actually did a video. Have you seen this video he's done about why the Tower of Terror is actually a bad Twilight Zone attraction?
No, I haven't seen this.
It's interesting. You should check it out. The username is Rob Plays. He's been on the show before. And it's an interesting analysis of why it's just really not a good Twilight Zone attraction. But I actually have a funny story, very much like your Aerosmith story, of why you became an Aerosmith fan. Do you want to know why I became a fan of the Twilight Zone?
Tell me.
Felicity. Do you remember Kerry Russell on the TV show Felicity?
Yeah, I am at a loss as to what the connection could possibly be here.
They did a Twilight Zone episode.
Felicity did a Twilight Zone episode.
They did a full-on black and white, in that style, Twilight Zone episode of Felicity.
With reference to the Twilight Zone, or is it, like I was saying before, sort of an ambiguous homage?
No, like it's totally the Twilight Zone. Okay. And I don't know if it was just J.J. Abrams wanted to have fun or what. I don't really know the reasoning that this happened, but I saw that episode because I was a huge Felicity fan, huge Kerry Russell fan, back to the MMC days, and I saw that and I was like, I need to see the Twilight Zone. And that's how I became a fan of the Twilight Zone.
Wow.
Yeah, so if only Rod Serling were alive, I could interview him and have that conversation. This is how I became a fan of your show.
Well, who you could interview is Kerry Russell. All about that episode. Yeah. What if we had the Felicity Tower of Terror?
And that'd be a little weird. That'd be a little strange. That'd be actually really strange. I was going to try to tie it back into the Mickey Mouse Club, but no, I just don't see that working.
Yeah, no, probably not.
Yeah. So, but in any case, Rod Serling, I think, the perfect use in that attraction. Let's head to one that I know you have strong feelings about, and that is Dinosaur, where we have Phylicia Rashad and Wallace Langham. Phylicia Rashad, of course, known best from The Cosby Show, I would believe, and Wallace from the show CSI, but also a character actor seen in many, many things.
Yeah, well, Phylicia Rashad should be starring in things on the regular. It is a crime that she doesn't appear in things more often. She is wonderful. In fact, her talents were probably underused on The Cosby Show because she's a wonderful dramatic actress as well. I think we get touches of both her comedic and her dramatic powers in the Dinosaur pre-show. But she's wonderful. She makes this attraction. And, I'm thinking about Phylicia Rashad the whole time I'm writing it because I know that her character is trying to, look out for us and bring us back to safety. And it's because she sells it so well. And this goes to one of the larger points about this question of, do celebrities belong in Disney attractions? And I think maybe one of the most important questions is just, are they good actors? In this case, she's not playing herself. She's playing a character, and she's a fantastic actress. She plays this character very, very well. She has tremendous dramatic gravitas. And so why wouldn't you want an actress of her caliber in that role?
The whole reason why I wouldn't want that is because of exactly what you just said. You said, I think about Phylicia Rashad the entire attraction, and I think that's a problem.
Okay, but I'm thinking about, her performance, her character, not like The Cosby Show.
Okay, well, I'm thinking of The Cosby Show every time I see her, and I'm going to leave my opinions of Phylicia Rashad out of this because you are my friend and I do not want to offend.
No, please. You and I have sufficient rapport that you open up. Let me know what you think about Phylicia Rashad.
There is an air of egotism.
Oh,
is egotism
my gosh.
a word around her? That it rubs me the wrong way, and I'll never forget I was in New York City. And I had opinions about her before this happened, but I was in New York City. I think I was like by the Avenue Q stage door. So we're talking like early 2000s. And if I'm remembering correctly, she was next door with Raisin in the Sun. And she came out of the stage door. I was hanging out waiting for some Avenue Q people. She came out of the stage door with such an over the top, like she didn't say this, but it was very much like, oh, no pictures, no autographs. And like ran to her driver, like basically covering her face, like, oh, and I was just like, oh, please get over yourself, woman. I cannot handle this. And yeah, it drives me nuts.
When one is a queen, one must walk with the posture of a queen.
Here's the thing. Oprah walks with the posture of a queen, but it ain't like that. It's with some nice integrity.
So
but
this is personal for you. This relates to a personal experience, a personal encounter.
here's the thing. I've actually never liked The Cosby Show.
Yeah, I don't either. I actually don't think it's all that funny. It was an important show, but I don't think it's that funny. And that's why I say her talents were underutilized.
Yeah.
Watch her in Touched by an Angel.
As far as you love that show. Oh my
I do
goodness.
love that show, and I love
I've never
Della
seen
Reese.
it. Yeah, I've never seen it. But yeah, I'm not saying she's not talented. She's just always kind of rubbed me the wrong way. So seeing her in this attraction actually is really distracting to me because I have particularly strong feelings toward her. But I'm glad you enjoy her.
Well, we all come into Dinosaur with baggage, apparently.
Yeah. Oh, I love Dinosaur. It's great. Anyway, Wallace Langham. Did you recognize him?
No, not at all. I don't know that I've seen him in anything else. So tell me.
So CSI is the show that I think most people know him from. I've seen him in a bunch of stuff, but once again, character actor, can't put my finger on it, and always thinking, what have I seen him in? Although I will say one thing I always think, is that him? And I don't believe it is, and you'll probably know the answer to this. He is not the caterpillar in Adventures in Wonderland, is he?
I don't know, but that would be amazing if so.
Isn't there something similar facially? Or is it just me? I feel like it kind of reminds me of him, but I don't even know if he'd be old enough to have been that,
I don't know. I guess I can see that. We'll have to look into this. And if that's true, that's wonderful because talk about things that don't get their due.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna look this up right now because why not? Let's see.
This is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, for those who don't know. TV show that aired in maybe the late 80s, early 1990s, I think early 90s on the Disney Channel, back when it was like a premium subscription network. And it was just this extremely 90s sort of hip version of Alice in Wonderland. And
1992.
Okay, 1992. It was very quirky, and I honestly don't know how it would hold up upon revisiting. But I do know that a whole generation that had the Disney Channel as children in the early 90s remember this show. It seems more vividly than a lot of the other programming on there. Yeah, it's a very special thing.
The actor's name who played the caterpillar is Wesley Mann. So no, it was not Wallace Langham, but he always reminds me of it. So there's that. In any case, let's move on to another attraction, one we've touched upon a little bit, which was the Universe of Energy, starring Ellen DeGeneres and Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Okay. Again, love it. Think it's fantastic. I think this is one of the all-time great Disney attractions, actually, and has never been fully appreciated as such.
Do you like this more than the original version?
Yes, I do. Though I think the original was great, and I think it had some strengths. It had some individual elements that I missed. Some wonderful technology was on display, but I think that ultimately it was a little dry. And comparing that to Ellen's Energy Adventure, I think that you still get the same substance, the same sort of noble theme of imparting these lessons about energy, not only how it works, but why it's important and why we need to be mindful of it in the future. All of that still comes through, or came through, I should say, in Ellen's Energy Adventure. But you got the edutainment, the entertaining aspect that was maybe lacking in the original attraction. And this was part of Epcot's goal, right? To educate and inspire while also entertaining. And I think that this is the quintessential example of that, Ellen's Energy Adventure. And the entertainment comes in part from Bill Nye, in part from Jamie Lee Curtis and Alex Trebek, but principally from Ellen DeGeneres, who, again, I just happen to be a huge fan of. I know we might have different opinions on this as well, Jeff, but I find her so funny. I love, I was a 90s kid, so her Disney TV series, it was just called Ellen, was a big deal in the 90s. I loved it. It had a little bit of a presence in the theme parks as well. Over in Disney MGM Studios, there was the Buy the Book gift shop, which then became Writer's Stop and is now the Baseline Tap House. But originally it was called Buy the Book, which was the bookstore that her character owned on the TV series. Again, her sense of humor is this silly, deadpan, tongue-in-cheek, self-deprecating sense of humor that I think is a perfect match for the Disney parks personality. So she fits in well. She's an important part of Disney history. I think she would qualify as a Disney legend. In fact, she's one of the people that I am rooting for to be recognized as a Disney legend in the future. And she totally sells it. And again, I love that she starts off by calling our attention to the fact, sort of owning up to the fact that she doesn't make a lot of sense as the ambassador from the Universe of Energy, because she is just a sort of silly celebrity, but by calling our attention to that and then making that part of the storyline, right? Like Ellen has to learn about energy, and so that's why Bill Nye comes in, and it all just works very well, or worked very well.
This attraction is really interesting because it kind of hits upon several of the different celebrity types in the attraction. So you've got Bill Nye the Science Guy and Alex Trebek playing themselves, which I'm all for. If you're playing yourself, I think that's cool. Then you've got Jamie Lee Curtis, who is straight out playing a character. So she's acting. So then there's the whole, believability of character. And then there's Ellen, who's playing herself, but also kind of a character, because somebody told me this, and I always made an assumption. I never watched her sitcom, but is the living room set that we see at the beginning of her Universe of Energy, was that not her sitcom set? Because I was originally told it is not. Okay, that's interesting to me, because I always thought that it was from the set of her sitcom. So that becomes, like, in that case, she would be playing a character, but I guess they're playing it off as it's her home, so she's playing herself. It's kind of weird to me. I find it weird that this... It's so interesting to me just how relevant she still is today, considering she was hired for a completely different reason when that attraction was created with her. And then by the end, it was like, well, nobody knows her for that anymore, but she's still super mainstream. So I find that just kind of, and even Bill Nye, I find it interesting that, like, he was, in the public eye when that attraction began, and then by the end of it, he's back on Netflix. Like, it's so interesting to me.
Yeah, and Jamie Lee Curtis is on our TVs every day talking to us about digestive health.
Oh, yes, the commercials. And she's back with Halloween, so...
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So it's... And then Alex Trebek is still doing his thing. Like, it's so crazy. Oh, man. In any case, you know my feelings on this. Everybody knows my feelings on Ellen and all that jazz.
No, but you're right. It's weird. I mean, she's always done this thing where there are so many different Ellens, right? So, I mean, even in her original sitcom, she was Ellen DeGeneres playing Ellen Morgan, but the two were sort of one and the same, as evidenced by the fact that when Ellen DeGeneres came out in public, Ellen Morgan, the character character also came out on her show. And then, she's Ellen in Ellen's Energy Adventure. Well, is she Ellen DeGeneres, or is she another Ellen, different from both DeGeneres and Morgan? And that's never made entirely clear. And, Jerry Seinfeld's done this same sort of thing, where he's Jerry Seinfeld, the real person, Jerry Seinfeld, the fictional person, and then he's played other Jerrys and other things. And so, it's all sort of trading on their cachet, their public persona, and it's almost like the first name's all you need.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me that like you have a celebrity playing themselves, but then a celebrity playing a character as well. Like that juxtaposition is a little weird between Ellen and Jamie Lee Curtis, I feel. It's inconsistent, I think. So it's like, well, if Ellen's Ellen, shouldn't Jamie just be Jamie? But that comes down to personal choice, I think. But let's hop to one that I'm sure have strong opinions about, and that's Golden Dreams over at Disney California Adventure, starring the one and only Ms. Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah. I'm realizing as we go through these that maybe we really do have divergent opinions, because I'm pretty much in love with most of these that we're talking about. And especially this one, Jeff, I am a huge Whoopi Goldberg fan. If I have a Rick Moranis, she is my Rick Moranis.
I'm going to tell Phylicia you said that.
Phylicia would understand. She is not the egotistical persona that you make her out to be.
I don't know about that, but
I think she would understand. And I have a feeling that Whoopi and Phylicia are friends. I don't know that to be true. I would like to think that it's true. But yeah, it's Golden Dreams. Wonderful from beginning to end. I'm so sad that it's not there anymore.
Did you ever experience it in person?
I did. Yes,
okay,
I
cool.
did. I got to see it a couple of times before it closed. And, not only did Whoopi appear on screen, but there were also these giant statues of her where, her face would sort of come to life on the statues. And I thought that, here you go, she's playing a character, right? And Whoopi is just a wonderful actress. Again, she marries comedy and drama. That's sort of the thing that she's known for in her career. Her first film was The Color Purple, a serious drama, and then she followed that up with comedies like Jumpin' Jack Flash and Fatal Beauty. And so she brings both those things together. She's funny in some parts. She's serious and moving and inspiring in others. And she has such a long, rich history with the Disney company that, Jeff, I would think that, you want everything to relate back to Disney within the parks. Well, Whoopi has done so much for Disney, not only within the parks, though certainly that, but also in the movie division. I mean, you just did that wonderful episode on Cinderella, and Whoopi's in that. She's done tons of things. She just became a Disney legend, and so when she speaks to us from inside California Adventure, she does so as part of the Disney family, I think.
But she's playing a character, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So my opinion's the same there. I'm fine with her. I like Whoopi. I have, it's just this character believability. But I don't know, when it comes to Whoopi, it's kind of like this thing where there's always Whoopi there, no matter what character she's playing. Like there's always Whoopi. She's so specific.
As there should be. Oh, wait. Do you mean that Whoopi is always present within the park, or you mean that
within any role she plays? I'm like, there's always like she's just got this like sassiness about her that I feel like comes through in every role. Maybe not like Color Purple. I guess that's a very different character. But I don't, especially these days.
Yes. Yes, these days. Well, I as a huge Whoopi fan, I guess I think I can say this, that I think that she does often phone it in these days. And she also isn't given a lot of serious dramatic roles anymore. So she is cast for more of this sassy Valley Girl type thing that she does. But back in the day when Whoopi needed to break out the dramatic chops, I think that she could really disappear into a character. But no, I know what you're saying. You do get a big dose of the Whoopi Goldberg personality even as she's playing another character within this attraction. But she's sometimes referred to as the Queen of California Adventure, and not just by me, because she was there. She was at Superstar Limo. She's done a lot of PR for the parks. She took John Lasseter took her on a tour through Cars Land when it opened. So she's done a lot for California Adventure.
Let's put her face on the fun wheel.
I am all for it. I would ride it every year.
Heck, she could narrate World of Color. I can't believe, by the way, on this list, Neil Patrick Harris never came up, which is shocking to me. It's always voiceover, it seems like, or him hosting, we're talking about rides mostly here, but...
I was going to say World of Color,
World of Color
him.
He hosted, I will say, as a person who at one point I was like so oversaturated with Neil Patrick Harris, has calmed down quite a bit in the last, I'd say, few years. So it's cool that Maybe he was even a little bit sick of himself. I don't know.
Well, there are always these celebrities who show up a lot and then they kind of fade away. Drew Carey was everywhere. He had his own attraction in Disney MGM Studios, Sounds Dangerous, starring Drew Carey, and he was a big deal for the Disney company in the 90s. In fact, I remember there being some sort of article or a news magazine piece that said the 3 men who've saved the Disney company. And it was Drew Carey, Regis Philbin, and Tim Allen. All of whom have faded in relevance since then. But yeah, you could look around and see them everywhere back then. And there was right across or right down the street from the Sounds Dangerous starring Drew Carey attraction, there was the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Win It, Play It, or whatever it was called, based off Regis Philbin's TV show. So yeah, the times change and celebrities are very prominent and then they fade away.
Yeah, the thing I'll say about Drew Carey and Neil Patrick Harris that I really like about them is that they are genuine fans of the parks. They're not just listen, everybody's a fan to a certain level, but these are people who have Disney stuff hanging in their homes. They're huge fans. So I appreciate them loving the parks.
I didn't know that about Drew Carey, but that raises an interesting point. We should get some of these other hardcore Disney fans. Whoopi's one of them, by the way. She's like a legitimate Disney Parks fan, but we should get some of the others in with attractions of their own. There should be a John Stamos attraction.
Yeah.
Who else? Steven Tyler's a big Disney Parks fan, as I mentioned.
Is he? Okay.
He is. Jennifer Goodwin.
I was thinking of her, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, she's done some like live appearances in the parks, but yeah, she should have an attraction.
Anyway, I think that's going to wrap it up for our conversation of celebrities in attractions. Thanks so much for joining for that. But of course, that means it's trivia time! Okay, Aaron, do you want to hit me with a trivia question first, or shall I hit you?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Okay.
By the way, you missed a good one. That whole Ellen Bookshop thing would have been a great trivia question.
Oh my gosh. Okay. We talked earlier about Martin Short and his appearance in Epcot. He's actually appeared in 4 Disney theme park attractions. We've already talked about one of them, but can you name all 4?
Prince of Egypt. Just kidding. That's DreamWorks. Obviously out of Canada.
Yes.
And then there was the Scary Sounds thing that was at Disney MGM Studios.
Correct, yes. The Monster Sound Show at Disney MGM Studios.
And then was it Cranium Command or something?
Close.
Wonders,
Same pavilion. Wonders of Life Pavilion.
This is Your Brain or I don't know. I'm so bad at the names of those attractions.
I think a little lower down in the anatomy.
The Gut?
No. Do you want me to tell you?
Yeah.
Okay, The Making of Me, which was the attraction all about the human reproductive system.
Okay, so The Making of Me. And then there's one other that I cannot picture at all. Is he a voice in it, or is it?
He appears in it, but I'll give you a hint, which is that it's not in the domestic theme parks.
Oh, goodness. Ooh. I'm going to guess. Well. Ooh. Is it in Paris?
Correct.
Is it in the Walt Disney Studios Park?
Correct. Getting warmer.
What attraction in the Walt Disney Studios Park does he appear in? Is it like the studio tour? Is he the host of the studio tour there?
No.
I'm clueless.
Okay. It's an attraction called Cinémagique.
Oh, was he part of that?
He is, yeah. He's sort of the host. I believe, I've only seen it on YouTube and it's been a while. I think he may play himself, but then also play a variety of characters in like different film genres.
Interesting. I did not know that. That's interesting. Well, when we were preparing for this episode, you actually mentioned a story I hadn't heard before, and that's the story of Dr. Jackie Ogden, who a lot of people apparently, this is a character in Pandora, the World of Avatar, and a lot of people feel like she's a Sigourney Weaver lookalike, even though she's not playing the same character in Flight of Passage. But Dr. Jackie Ogden, the name, not the actress playing the role, but that name is a real person who works at Walt Disney World. She works for Animal Health and Welfare, and she oversees 5 different areas at Walt Disney World doing this. Can you name those 5 areas?
Oh my gosh. I felt like I knew so much about Jackie Ogden, and then you asked this question and I feel like I don't know anything at all. Okay, 5 areas, as in like theme parks or like divisions?
So I'll give you the easy one. Disney's Animal Kingdom is 1.
Okay. Disney's Animal Kingdom. So this would be places where there are animals. All right, so I'm going to say Animal Kingdom Lodge. Is that a separate place?
That counts.
Okay. Oh my gosh, where else are there animals? Okay, the Seas Pavilion. The Living Seas.
Yes, Epcot's the Living Seas. The Seas Pavilion.
Okay, that's 3. There are 2 more?
I actually lied. There's 3 more. There's 6.
There are 3 more. Oh my gosh. Okay, in Hollywood Studios, are there live animals anywhere? I don't think so.
No, I lied. There's 2 more. I'm sorry. I got 2 names mixed up.
2 more. Okay, and all of Animal Kingdom was just 1, right? So
Yep.
All right, so everything else there is off the table. Do any other resorts have live animals? I don't think so. Not Disney Springs. Does Magic Kingdom? Jeff, I'm at a loss. I don't think I can come up with another one.
Where can you swim with sharks? Other than Epcot.
Yeah, other than Epcot, I don't know. Can you swim with sharks?
And Typhoon Lagoon.
Typhoon Lagoon, the water parks. Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about them. Okay.
Yeah, and then the Tri-Circle D Ranch at Fort Wilderness.
Yes. Okay, that makes sense. Wow, Jackie Ogden is a busy lady.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Anyway, Aaron, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I want to remind people you can check out all of Aaron's work over at AaronWallaceOnline.com. Anything else you want to plug before we get going?
No, just, like you said, my website, my name on Twitter is all you need, Aaron Wallace. You can find pretty much everything I do using that. And thanks for having me on the show again, Jeff.
And before we get going, I want to remind all of you that you can become a supporter of Disney Coast to Coast over at patreon.com/DCTC, where you can get some pretty cool rewards like live stream Q&As and movie audio commentary, stuff like that. So you can check all that out at patreon.com/DCTC or head over to DisneyCoastToCoast.com. Also want to remind all of you, you can help other Disney fans find the show by heading to iTunes and leaving a 5-star rating and review over there. Of course, every day on Instagram, we do the Daily Disney Decision on Instagram Live. So make sure you're following DIZNEYCTC on Instagram for that. And other than that, have a magical day, everybody. Bye.
Thanks for watching Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePaoli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com.